The PHCC has been training plumbers for decades. The shift from a college education to the trades is at an all-time high.
The way college was marketed was, here, spend $200,000 and you're going to get a job next week.
Still, the trades, like plumbing, are looking at a shortage of qualified workers. PHCC is adapting and implementing new ways to train the next generation. Listen in. Dan, thanks for joining us. I've been aware of the PHCC for a long, long time. I've been kind of in this industry for almost 30 years. I know that you guys do a ton of training for plumbers, but 30 years ago, I'll date myself and probably I'm guessing you too. 30 years ago, I feel like the plumbing landscape was such a different place. Am I wrong there or am I right there? And what has changed, between now and then with that whole the service industry, plumbing as a whole?
It's great that you bring it up. It has dramatically changed in so many ways, both in education and training. The whole notion, the old school way of doing it, a young apprentice 30 years ago worked with a journeyman. They sat there, they learned, they used to use correspondence textbooks, 300-400 pages, and have to go through their textbook each day and learn on the job kind of a situation, or be at a training center and be in a regular kind of classroom environment. What has happened is this dramatic evolution of both the way they learn and the way the generation today learns. It's, with iPads and cell phones and laptops that you can take anywhere, the internet, COVID dramatically altered the landscape of how apprentices learn today as well. So, and that's been the greatest change. And we've seen that at PHCC Educational Foundation through our academy.
Beyond just the way the technology has changed, what's so interesting about the plumbing industry, and this is what I love right now with the place we're in as trying to see this industry grow, which is the same thing. Our goal is the same as yours. I've interviewed a bunch of plumbers over the last few months, and they always keep saying finding the young help to come in and do this is hard, which it always has been. But to me, what's great about plumbing right now is it's lost all of its, in my opinion, it's losing the negative stereotypes it used to have. Yeah. As far as like, it was a dirty job. Well, yeah, it is dirty. You do get dirty. You get dirty in a lot of jobs. But it also used to be something where people felt like there are a lot of really wealthy plumbers out there right now because the service industries are struggling to get new bodies in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I've been privileged to be at PHCC at the Educational Foundation for over getting close to 2 years now. And, I've always been involved in the trade industry per se, worked in, roofing and construction side, home building with their association. So generally overview of all the trades. And the one thing that I'm seeing the dramatic shift is, especially what had occurred in COVID, the cost of a college education, the way college was marketed was, here, spend $200,000 and you're going to get a job next week. Then, about 10 years ago, so the reality woke up that, no, I'm not. I've got $200,000 in student debt and I'm making $50,000 a year. And then I'm about to get laid off by some mass layoff from a tech industry.
You're 100% on the money there. Yeah. The other kind of weird thing is like society, again, my parents and definitely their parents, you're always taught if you don't go to college, you're never going to get a good job.
Absolutely. And that I see that. And when I have conversations with folks in their 20s and 30s about getting into the trades, the one thing I've seen a noticed shift is that you do see for our academy per se, we've got about 12,000 registered users in our PHCC online academy taking our apprenticeship and our pre-apprenticeship courses over the last 5 years. 12,000 registered users. And what's amazing, I've seen the average age is 28 years old. It's not the 17, 18-year-old coming out. So, in that discussion, we found that folks who, apply for our scholarships and those programs, they're looking at it like they tried college. They may have gone for 1 or 2 years. What ends up happening, a lot of them, is they find themselves stuck in a situation where they're working at a fast food restaurant or a Starbucks or, a Target, and they're thinking to themselves, this isn't a career for me. Then they turn around and they see someone they may know, or they talk to somebody who's in the trades, plumbing or HVAC, and they're like, hey, wait a second. no student debt. You're getting a lifetime of training and opportunity here. Your salary is enormous. I mean, the average salaries for both plumbing and HVAC technicians, going around the country. I mean, you're talking six figures. So if you've been in the tech industry on the HVAC side for about 10 years in certain states, your salary is well over $100,000 a year. That's only after maybe 8 to 10 years. And that could even be, it depends on how much you want to work. And there's always recession-proof kind of industry here. Toilets, plumbing has to be fixed. Your HVAC breaks. You need these people. They're essential workers. Doesn't matter if there's a recession or not. You're still going to need them there. And they are right now, I think the moment in the trade industry for plumbing and HVAC is just, it's the right time if you want to get in. And I get to meet people who are getting ready to retire and sell their businesses for $8 to $10 million. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, or more. Yeah. They're jetting off on their ships. They have a yacht. They're going to international travel and more. I mean, it's mind-boggling, but I honestly think it's because my generation, and I'm, I guess I said I'm my 50s, but which started with us. We were so ingrained that you had to go to college. You had to go to college. You had to go to college. And now I think, younger folks are seeing that, no, that's not necessary anymore.
I 100% agree with you.
Career. Yeah.
You said something interesting. What I like about plumbing is there's a lot of interesting things that can happen. Or you talked about just now about owners being able to sell their businesses. Mm-hmm. If you want to be an employee, a plumber that works for another one, but it's a very easy profession to make the progression or the progression into being a business owner as well. Yeah. Once you've got that license and you've got the training, if you're so inclined, what I love about plumbing is you're just, I say just, but you're just a van and some customer service away from, throwing your own name out there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the interesting thing I've seen now is that, plumbing companies, the smaller shops, they're looking at continuing their legacies. They want to see folks grow in their company and take over one day. We at PHCC National, we've actually worked with a couple of organizations that, provide that kind of training or kind of prepare that plumbing owner to get his company ready to sell. And how would you do that? And what we're finding is it's not the kids taking over the business. It's someone within their company. They sell to 2 or 3 other plumbers that have been with them for a period of time. So their company brand continues, their legacy continues, just not through family ownership. And we're seeing that across the board. And that's been a dramatic shift as well.
The great thing about plumbing is what I'll call the job security of it too, is there's a significant barrier to entry, which anytime you look at a business from an acquisition standpoint, or I want to buy it from the owner standpoint, or even if I'm working in its standpoint, the barrier to entry is important because it means I can keep out other people from coming into my turf. Now, in the same breath, that's also what makes it difficult for us to find qualified plumbers. So that's kind of a, chicken egg scenario, but I do think it's a positive.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's exciting change as well. I mean, when you take, a young plumber who just, is going through his apprenticeship and he's learning on the job, he or she, and that one thing I want to say, there's diversity, there's change. We've seen it in our own, online program, in some areas, we look at some of the scholarship recipients as kind of that kind of diverse background as well. 20% of our scholarship recipients are Latino. So it's growing in all segments of that population. It's growing, whether if male, female, and that's the wonderful part about it. What I'm hearing from the plumbing contractor owners, the people that have been around for 20 years, they say, I don't care what you look like. I don't care who you are. Can you do the job? Are you good with the customers? Can you sell a product? Are you trained successfully to install the devices, and you show up to work every day? And that's the thing. I'll hire you if they'll do that and get paid well.
At ServiceTitan, we know running a contracting business is hard work. With our all-in-one solution for the trades, managing your business needs from scheduling to invoicing is easier than ever. Learn how ServiceTitan gives you the tools to keep your business running smoothly. Visit ServiceTitan.com. Once again, that's ServiceTitan.com.
I think one of the things with plumbing is again, there is definitely a shortage in the service industry. And the good news is younger people are recognizing that this is a great career to get into. One of the obstacles I see when I talk to plumbers from around the country is there's a significant difference in what it takes to be a plumber. I'll use Wisconsin, where we're at, as an example. 5-year apprentice, 2-year journeyman, I think. Don't quote me on that. That's 7 years. And that's the same thing I just said was great, barrier to entry, but it's a barrier to entry to even get somebody that's just such a long time.
It's interesting you say that. The barriers are there. And, I use the PHCC Online Academy as our real focal point of how we do training. Our online apprenticeship, we do both apprenticeship for plumbing and HVAC. And what we found is that for each state PHCC chapter that runs their own academy, is they all have different rules. Whereas New Jersey requires 3 to 4 years. You go right over to New York, and totally different. You don't have the same requirements. You go to the West Coast, California, Washington, it's different everywhere. And, we've had to tailor make our apprenticeship program for that and allow states. We have some states, just whatever, nothing. But then you go over to a state like Louisiana that needs that apprenticeship, because especially what had happened after Hurricane Katrina, they started to say, listen, you can't just have people with no experience, no licensing, no nothing. You need to have well-trained plumbers in there. So we have found that almost every state has variations. And then when you get on the HVAC side for our online program there, I mean, that's a little bit like the Wild West in some states, where you have a state like New Jersey that has requirements. Other states have nothing, not even, just go through whatever program's available. So you see, and it can be confusing to young folks that want to get into the trades. Like, how does this work? What are the requirements? But the one thing I always bring back to the point is, when you're an apprentice, you still can earn while you learn. If you go work for a PHCC company and you go through their online program, you're still on the job. And most times a company will either pay for it, or they'll go through some program to get funding for that. And that's the amazing part that I always say, that great opportunities are out there. So you're successful in that sense, because we're starting to see colleges that are actually saying, there's a business in there. Why don't we develop our own plumbing HVAC program and charge people $15,000, $18,000? The difference is you may not have a job at the end of the time you're finished. So if you go through a program that allows you to learn on the job while getting paid, you number one, have a job, you're building your future, you're building the experience that you're going to need once you get your journeyman license. So.
Do you know, is PHCC or any other entity working on some type of standardization, or does it not make sense to standardize because there is diversity from state to state? To your point, New Orleans is different than Wisconsin. Yeah. And even, but to that point, rural Wisconsin is a lot different than Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Mm-hmm.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough because, there's not a federal mandate per se. And anytime, there's been discussions around the country, could you do it? But, gridlock in Washington makes it next to impossible to think about what you can do nationally for a licensing effort. It really just varies on the states and, the political climate of that state. We stay out of that, and we try to just justify why it's so important to have good, strong, quality training. When you mention, it's the difference in Wisconsin between Milwaukee and rural Wisconsin. I used to say we're working currently with the state of Montana, very rural, but they're actually implementing stricter licensing in their state because they see a population growth. They see that they need to have well-trained plumbing and HVAC technicians. So they're actually changing. But then you go to a large, some states with a decent sized population, again, have lesser requirements. So it really varies based on the state and the political climate and what's out there at the time.
Yeah, and it's not fair to silo plumbing as the only place that this is an issue, because, septic installation, septic pumping, those two areas too, state by state, Wisconsin, again, very stringent. Yeah. I just interviewed a woman in Oklahoma where you can install a septic system, 12 of them a year with no license. And I didn't know that. You can do the same thing in Michigan, no license. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, what? And how does that work? Yeah. Getting off topic. But so that's nothing that's just exclusive to plumbing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's across the trades. I mean, it's just very well. And the other thing that has really changed as well, it's the technology. You're increasingly seeing more expensive, more well-designed, more high-tech product. I have seen products over the last few years in homes. I mean, you have an HVAC system that's connected to your iPhone. You have an app, and now that even certain plumbing systems can be connected to your app, so you can warm up your water before make sure it's the right temperature. That is all changed everywhere. So you need more advanced training. There's certain toilets that require special overviews. Better on make sure you're reviewing what you're installing, because if you install it wrong, you're costing your customers thousands of dollars. And that's the key point that I always say: the better trained tech and plumber you have in that household is less likely that there's going to be a problem later on. And, I look at from, the one thing we don't like, and we talk about the trades, is thinking about the consumer themselves. The consumer is spending tens, 20, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years on plumbing and HVAC systems. I myself, I installed state-of-the-art HVAC system that was about over $20,000. That's a lot of money that consumer is investing in it. So they need to feel confident that they're spending what the dollars they're putting in is being installed properly. And that's where the relationships, actually, there's still a relationship piece of that. And that's where, plumbers, and you're still, as much as a lawyer or a doctor, you need a great plumber. Somebody you've known for years.
100% agree, because you're using your plumbing every day.
Mm-hmm.
Does PHCC have branches in all 50 states?
We have chapters. I think we have the PHCC Academy has about 44 different chapters, and academies in the states. And we have most of the large states well represented, and we're a chapter-based federation. So if you're a member of PHCC National, you're also, if you live in California, you're a member there, or New York. So a lot of the state chapters operate independently, but the one wonderful part is they kind of focus on the issues in their state. So if you're a plumbing contractor, say out in California, you have an opportunity to participate with a local PHCC group that can help you in a number of different ways.
Yeah, I might have phrased that wrong. The reason I had asked it, if I'm a contractor in Wisconsin and I want your help to train up some new guys, what do I do?
Sure. You can come to the PHCC Educational Foundation. We'll link you to our academy. You can still work through our program, and then we can also work to connect you over to that state chapter. Dan Kelly, our president for this year, is a Wisconsin member, and it's great state chapter, great organization. You have a lot of manufacturers in your state. So by being part of PHCC, both national and Wisconsin, you can develop the relationships that you'll need to be a better plumber. And, also the relationships that build around the brand that you need, the products, the supplier relationships. It really does help as an individual. It's a PHCC, and I've heard this a couple of times, and I love the saying this: PHCC is a community. It's a community of plumbers and HVAC owners, and it's nice because their number one goal is to see the industry succeed. And the nice part about PHCC, Educational Foundation, it was actually founded in the mid-'80s for that reason. They didn't care about their individual competitive nature. They said, let's collectively get together and start a foundation to develop scholarships, education, and training. And in the mid-'80s, they actually raised $1 million. And you'll appreciate this as Wisconsin. They actually, I think it was over a golfing match in the mid-'80s, they were playing golf with Herb Kohler. And our president of the foundation at the time said, do you mind? We really want to start up a foundation. And Herb Kohler said, well, how much do you want? And they said, I don't know, $1 million. And Kohler said, sure, we'll give you $1 million. And
if
so
you've never been there, you should see it.
Well, and he said he came back and they said, maybe we should ask them for $2 million. But that was the start of the Educational Foundation's growth from, mid-'80s to where it is today, which, like I said, we have 12,000 registered users in our academy. We've given out probably about 600 to 700 scholarships. We average about $150,000 a year in scholarships for apprentices. And it feels good. It's a wonderful, I feel like we're making a dent in trying to bring more people into the trades.
Yeah, I think you are too. And I think that's important. I'm glad. to summarize what you were kind of just talking about,
Sure.
it sounds like somebody recognized 20, 30 years ago, 40 now, I guess, depending on
Yeah.
what year you were talking about exactly there, was instead of us all arguing over the same slices of this tiny little pie, let's just make a bigger pie.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the nature of education has changed. The generation of learning has changed. We're adapting to way young apprentices want to learn and how they want to get into this program. More online training, more, they learn differently. And that's the one avenue, what we've developed over the years is how they're learning today. They look at influencers, they're being guided by people, and that's the dramatic shift. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, they're all learning in a different way. But the one area that I've seen there's been a struggle is they have a harder time connecting. And being the old school plumber, you knew everybody on your route, you knew the people, your customers, you'd work with them, you've seen their kids go through college. That has changed. And so we're actually adapting programs to help young contractors to actually build more of a relationship and learn to grow beyond just seeing them on a screen, because everybody does Zooms, they're all Zooming, they're always Facebooking, they're always, TikToking or something. But that personal relationship is the piece now, I think, that has to change over the next 10 years.
For more information on the PHCC's education and training, please visit phccfoundation.org. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this channel to keep more great content coming.